She's not confused. She's not being difficult. She's not sending mixed signals by accident. She's watching you. Right now, in the way she responds to your texts, in the pause before she answers your question, in the moment she creates friction where there didn't need to be any, she is gathering information about you, specific information, the kind that no resume, no conversation, no list of impressive qualities can provide, the kind that only comes from watching how a man behaves when the situation isn't comfortable. Most men never realize this is happening. They experience the friction, the test, the moment of pressure, and they react. They defend themselves, they chase, they over-explain, they perform. And every one of those responses tells her exactly what she was trying to find out, just not what she was hoping to find. Here is what I want you to understand before we go any further. She is almost never doing this consciously. She is not sitting across from you, running a deliberate strategy. The testing behavior that happens in female psychology is largely subconscious, driven by deep biological, psychological programming that is evaluating one fundamental question. Is this man who he appears to be when the pressure is off, or does he become someone else when it isn't? That question is the engine underneath every test. And once you understand it, every confusing moment in dating and relationships starts to make sense in a completely different way. In this video, I'm going to break down the secret signs she's testing you, what each test looks like, what she's actually measuring, why she's doing it, and most importantly, how to respond in a way that is not a performance, not a strategy, but a genuine expression of the qualities she is trying to find. There are 7 signs. The 7th one is the subtlest and the most important. Most men never see it coming. Stay through all of them. I'm Lyra. This is Mystique Psychology. If you're new here, subscribe to Mystique Psychology right now. Every week, I break down the real psychology behind female behavior, attraction, and what's actually happening beneath the surface of the moments that confuse men most. Subscribe, turn on the bell, and let's get into it. Before the 7 signs, I need to give you the psychological foundation, because without it, understanding the signs is just pattern recognition without meaning. Testing in female psychology is not malicious. Let me say that clearly and directly, because the moment men hear the word test, they often jump to a narrative about games and manipulation. That is not what this is. Testing is a biological and psychological survival mechanism. Women are wired, deeply evolutionarily wired, to assess the quality, consistency, and character of a potential partner before allowing genuine emotional investment. The stakes of that investment are historically and practically very high. And so the female psychology has developed sophisticated, largely unconscious methods of gathering the information needed to make that assessment. What she is testing for in every instance comes down to 3 core qualities. First, consistency. Does he behave the same way when things are easy as when they are hard? Is the man she sees in comfortable moments the same man who shows up when there's friction, uncertainty, or emotional pressure? Second, groundedness. Does he have a stable internal world? Is his sense of self dependent on her approval, or does he have a core that doesn't collapse when she withdraws, challenges, or creates distance? Third, genuine character, not performed character, the version of himself he presents when he's trying to impress. The actual values, the actual responses, the actual person underneath the effort. Testing is how she accesses all 3, not through questions, not through direct observation of his best moments, through pressure, through situations that reveal rather than allow performance. Understanding this doesn't mean you play a different game. It means you become the man whose natural responses already answer what she's asking. That is the only response that actually works. And that is what the 7 signs are pointing toward. Sign number 1, she creates friction over something small. You make a plan, a casual one, dinner or what to do on the weekend, or something straightforward that has no real weight to it, and suddenly there's pushback. She's not sure. She has a different idea. She asks a question about it that seems designed to make it more complicated than it needs to be. And you think, why is she making this difficult? Why is something simple turning into a negotiation? This is called the decisiveness test, and here is what she is measuring. She is not actually opposed to the plan. She is watching what happens to you when she introduces resistance. Does your confidence hold? Do you stay relaxed and grounded? Maintain your position with ease? Adjust when it genuinely makes sense without losing your center? Or does your energy shift? Do you become apologetic, over-accommodating, suddenly anxious to make sure she's happy at the cost of your own clarity? The man who passes this test does not become rigid or aggressive. He does not fight her on principle. He stays grounded. He holds his position lightly, meaning he can adjust if there's a real reason, but he doesn't abandon it simply because she pushed back. He responds to her resistance with the calm of a man who is not threatened by someone having a different preference. The man who fails this test becomes small in the moment of pressure. He over-accommodates immediately. He apologizes for having had a preference at all. He makes her approval the deciding factor in what he does. And that response, that pattern of self-erasure in the face of her resistance, is the answer she was looking for. Just not the one that builds attraction. The practical response. Stay warm, stay open, but stay yourself. I want to make sure it works for you. And I also think this is worth trying. What specifically isn't working for you? That is the response of a man who has both consideration and backbone. That combination is what she was testing for. Sign number 2. She goes quiet and waits. The conversation is flowing. Things feel warm, connected, and then, without obvious reason, she pulls back. Her responses get shorter. She becomes less available. She's not rude, not cold exactly, but the energy shifts, and the warmth that was there a moment ago is less accessible, and your internal world immediately starts asking, what did I do? Did I say something wrong? Is she losing interest? Should I reach out more? Should I say something to address this directly? This is called the emotional regulation test, and what she is measuring is precise. She is watching how you manage your internal state when her external behavior becomes less rewarding. Does anxiety take over? Do you chase the warmth that just became less available, reaching out more, performing more, trying to reestablish connection through volume? Or do you stay regulated, continuing your life, maintaining your sense of self, allowing the space without being consumed by it? The psychology underneath this is important to understand. A woman's emotional availability will naturally fluctuate. In any real relationship, over any sustained period, there will be moments when she is less available, emotionally, energetically, attentively. The question is not whether those moments happen, it is how he responds when they do. A man whose emotional stability is dependent on her consistent warmth will reveal that dependence the moment she withdraws it. And that dependence, that specific kind of emotional fragility, is something her psychology reads as a warning signal. It tells her that his internal world is contingent on hers, that she will be responsible for managing not just her own emotional state, but his as well. The man who passes this test does not disappear, does not punish her silence with his own, does not become cold in return. He also does not chase. He stays present, stays himself, continues the life he was living before this conversation began. And when she returns, he meets her return with genuine warmth and without resentment or manufactured distance. That response communicates something her psychology reads as profound safety. This man has a stable internal world that does not collapse when I am not feeding it. Sign number 3. She asks a question that feels like it has no right answer. What would you do if I gained a lot of weight? How would you feel if I made more money than you? Do you think she's attractive? Would you choose your friends or me in a conflict? These questions land in a particular way. You can feel immediately that any direction you go seems like potential trouble. Answer one way, and you seem shallow. Answer another way, and you seem like you're performing the socially acceptable response. Answer with a joke, and you seem like you're deflecting. This is called the values clarity test. And here is what she is actually measuring, which is not what most men think. She is not primarily looking for the correct answer. She is looking for whether you have a genuine answer, whether you have thought about these things, whether you know your own values well enough to express them with confidence, and whether you can do that without needing her approval for what you think. The man who fumbles through this kind of question, who hedges, who tries to figure out what she wants to hear and give her that, fails not because he said the wrong thing, but because he revealed that he doesn't have a stable enough sense of his own values to answer from a real place. He is searching for her approval rather than expressing himself. The man who passes this test answers with genuine, considered honesty, not cruelty, not yes, she's more attractive than you, genuine, grounded, self-aware honesty. That's a real question. I think what I know about myself is that physical changes over time are normal, and what I'm actually attracted to is more complex than a number. But I'd rather answer honestly than tell you what sounds good. That answer is not perfect. It is real, and real is what she was testing for. Sign number 4. And this one is softer than the others, but no less significant. She mentions something she loves, a film, a book, a cause, a memory, something from her past that shaped her, something she is genuinely passionate about. She puts it into the conversation almost casually, and then she watches. Does he engage? Does he ask a real question? Not a polite question? A curious one? Does he make her feel like what matters to her is interesting to him? Or does he acknowledge it briefly and move the conversation back to the places where he is comfortable? This is called the genuine interest test. And what she is measuring is whether you are actually curious about her, not about the version of her that is easy to be attracted to, the surface version, the version that is performing for you, but about the interior person, the one with specific passions and references and ideas that have nothing to do with you. This matters enormously in female psychology. Women are extraordinarily perceptive about the difference between a man who is interested in them as a concept, as an attractive person to pursue, and a man who is genuinely curious about who they specifically are. The first kind of interest is common, the second kind is rare, and a woman who experiences the second kind from a man she is evaluating doesn't forget it. The response that passes this test is not complex. It is genuine attention. Tell me more about that. What is it about that film specifically that stays with you? How did that shape the way you think about things? Questions that are not interrogations, but invitations. The response of a man who finds her genuinely interesting, not because he has decided to perform interest, but because he actually is. 4 down, 3 to go, and the final 3 are the ones that show up most in established connections, not just early dating. If you're not subscribed yet, subscribe now and drop a comment telling me which of the first 4 you've encountered. The most honest comments always start the best conversations. Now, sign 5. Sign number 5. She brings up an ex. Not in the way that is obviously provocative, not "my ex used to do this better," in the way that is casual, contextual, the mention of someone who is simply part of her history. She tells a story, and he's in it. She references something they did. She mentions him in passing and then watches. This is called the security test. And here is what she is measuring. She is watching for jealousy, not to enjoy it, to assess what your jealousy, if it appears, reveals about your relationship with your own security. A man who reacts to the mention of an ex with visible tension, subtle hostility, or an attempt to redirect the conversation is communicating something specific. His sense of his own value relative to her is not stable. He needs protection from information that might threaten it. A man who is genuinely secure doesn't experience the mention of her past as a threat. Her history is not competition, it is context. The people she cared about before you are the people who shaped her into the person you are now interested in. His security is not contingent on being the only significant person in her story. It comes from knowing who he is and what he brings. And that knowledge is not destabilized by the existence of other chapters. The response that passes this test is casual engagement. You don't need to fake enthusiasm about her exes. You simply don't perform discomfort. Yeah? How long were you two together? And then genuine, easy conversation. That ease communicates more about your security than almost anything else you could say. And security, real, inhabited security, is one of the qualities she is most specifically trying to assess. Sign number 6. She tests your boundaries, not by creating friction, but by being the one who gives in, by being warmer than expected, by suddenly making herself very available, by offering something, attention, affection, accessibility, that she hadn't been offering before. And this confuses men in a very specific way because it doesn't feel like a test. It feels like progress. It feels like the connection deepening, like something shifting in the right direction. This is called the over-availability test. And what it's measuring is the flip side of everything we've discussed so far. What happens to you when she removes the friction? When the challenge disappears and she becomes completely available, completely warm, completely attentive? Do you stay yourself, grounded, continuing your life, treating this new warmth as a natural development, but not a reason to abandon the rest of your world? Or do you reorganize your entire existence around the suddenly available warmth, become completely accessible, drop everything that was occupying your attention before she became the primary focus? The man who fails this test becomes someone different when the attention arrives. He was interesting when he was occupied and slightly unavailable, and now he is just completely there all the time, his entire energy organized around her. And the contrast between those two versions of himself is information she registers immediately. The man who passes this test receives the warmth genuinely and with real appreciation and stays himself. He enjoys the connection, is present in it, and also continues to be a person whose life has its own content, direction, and demands. That continuity is what tells her that the man she was attracted to is not a performance that disappears when the effort is no longer required. Sign number 7, the subtlest one, and the most important. She tells you something difficult about herself, something she isn't proud of, a failure, a fear, a pattern she recognizes in herself that isn't flattering, a part of her story that she doesn't usually share. She puts it on the table carefully, with a casualness that isn't quite casual, and then she watches, not to see whether you judge her. That's what most men think. She can handle judgment. She's experienced judgment. She's watching to see whether you can hold it. This is called the vulnerability test, and it is the deepest, most intimate test in the entire sequence, because it is the one that is testing not your confidence or your security or your decisiveness, but your capacity for genuine emotional depth. Your ability to be present with something difficult without flinching, without fixing, without making it about you, and without making her feel that her honesty has changed how you see her. The man who fails this test tries to fix it. He reassures her immediately, tells her it isn't as bad as she thinks, pivots quickly away from the discomfort towards something more comfortable. His response communicates that her difficult truth is a problem to be managed rather than a reality to be witnessed. The man who passes this test receives it with stillness. He doesn't minimize it. He doesn't immediately rush to make her feel better about it. He stays present with what she's shared. He asks a question that goes deeper. He reflects something back that shows he actually heard it. He makes her feel that what she offered was received rather than processed. And then, crucially, he often offers something equally real in return, not to match vulnerability for its own sake, but because genuine mutual exposure is what he understands as the foundation of something worth building. That response, that specific quality of presence, is what she was testing for, and it is the rarest thing she will encounter in a man. When she finds it, she stops testing, not because she decided to stop, because she no longer needs to. The information has been gathered, the question has been answered, and what she found was worth what it cost her to ask. Now step back and look at the pattern across all 7 signs. She created friction to test your groundedness. She went quiet to test your emotional regulation. She asked hard questions to test your self-knowledge. She shared what she loves to test your genuine curiosity. She mentioned her past to test your security. She gave you warmth to test your continuity. And she shared something difficult to test your capacity for depth. Every single one of those tests is asking the same underlying question. Who is this man when the situation isn't designed to make him look good? And here is the insight that changes how you relate to all of it. The man who passes these tests doesn't pass them by learning to recognize them and executing the correct response. He passes them because he has done the internal work of actually becoming the man those responses come naturally to. Grounded, secure, genuinely curious, emotionally regulated, consistent, self-aware, capable of depth. You cannot fake your way through these tests over time. She is too perceptive, and the testing is too consistent. What you can do is use the awareness of what she's measuring as a mirror, a very specific mirror that shows you exactly which qualities in yourself are still developing and which are already real. The tests are not obstacles, they are invitations. Invitations to show up as the fullest version of the man you are capable of being. And the men who understand that, who stop experiencing the testing as something being done to them and start experiencing it as information about who they are and who they're becoming, those are the men she eventually stops testing. Not because they passed a final exam, because in their presence she found what she was looking for. 7 signs. Let me bring them home. When she creates friction, she's testing your groundedness. Stay warm. Stay yourself. Don't collapse. When she goes quiet, she's testing your emotional regulation. Don't chase. Stay full. Let her return to a man who is already fine. When she asks the unanswerable question, she's testing your self-knowledge. Know your values well enough to express them honestly. Approval seeking fails this one every time. When she shares what she loves, she's testing your genuine curiosity. Be actually interested. Ask the question that goes one level deeper than expected. When she mentions her past, she's testing your security. Don't perform ease, actually have it. Her history is context, not competition. When she suddenly gives you everything, she's testing your continuity. Stay yourself when the warmth arrives. The man she was attracted to needs to still be there. And when she tells you something difficult, she's testing your capacity for depth. Receive it fully. Stay present. Offer something real in return. These are not games to win. They are qualities to embody, and the man who embodies them doesn't experience dating and relationships as a series of confusing, frustrating moments where he can't figure out what she wants. He experiences them as something that keeps getting deeper because the person on the other side of those tests found what she was looking for. That man is available to you. He is not a performance. He is the version of yourself you are already moving toward. This video just showed you the map. Now I want to hear from you. Which of these 7 have you encountered? Which one did you misread at the time and only understood later what it was actually testing for? Which one are you in the middle of right now? Drop it in the comments, honestly, not the polished version, the real one. This is the kind of community where real conversation happens. I read everything and I respond to the most genuine ones. If this gave you something today, if one of these 7 shifted how you're reading a situation you've been confused by, share it with someone who needs it. That is how this channel reaches the people it's built for. Subscribe if you haven't. New content every week. And I'll see you in the next one. I'm Lyra. This is Mystique Psychology. Take care of yourselves.